Look, after that first episode, there was no way I was gonna wait. It's Romania Black, and we are on episode 2 of Odd Taxi. And yeah, I watched episode 1 a few days ago, and I was like, I could really be recording a lot of other shows on my channel right now, but I could also record ahead and go ahead and watch episode 2. So we've met Odakawa, who is our eccentric cab driver. He's got a lot going on, a lot of mysterious things surrounding him. It's very interesting. And he also has been having some interesting customers or people surrounding his customers. And his camera footage has been taken by a cop who might be working undercover with the criminal Dobu. So there's all that going on. There is a nurse who's an alpaca, and she has maybe been stealing drugs from the doctor's office and possibly giving them to Dobu. And they're trying to get this like little ring, keep it going. Now the question is, we don't know, is the gorilla involved? Does he know what's going on? We don't know how much, like, there's a janitor, Eiji, who's involved. We don't know if he knows what's going on. There's the mysterious girl that's disappeared. She's disappeared from high school, and we think that she might be living in Odakawa's house, but we don't know for sure because there was not confirmation. It's just, this is like Zootopia meets Twin Peaks meets there's a bunch of series in my head going on right now, but it's basically like Zootopia meets Twin Peaks is what it's giving me right now, and I'm kind of here for it. And so yeah, that's where we're at. I'm really excited to see what we get in this episode. I'm recording this at the beginning of the month, so this may be a little bit off, but I want to give a shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon. If you like this video and you would like to support me, you can go over onto Patreon. If you want to join the Discord and talk about the show there, it's $1 per month. If you want to see next week's episode a week early and see all of my shows a week earlier than everybody else on YouTube, you can get exclusive rights with $5 a month. But these people, they pay me $10 a month because they're amazing and they're awesome and they support the channel, and they're just throwing me a couple extra bones because they're amazing people. So I want to give a shout out to Alex Cornejo, to Be Happy, to Bisa, to Damage3245, to Dana, to Danger Zone, to Destiny Marie, to Vorin, to Ichu, to Eric, to Fisho, to Ghostly, Turnip, El Freya, Liam Posel, Lyndon, Matthew Palfinier, Murphew, Willie Morris, as well as Translucent Min, Sunspots, and Shimoyama. And you can join that list of people that have been talked about in each of my videos by going over to my Patreon. So thank you guys so much. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I've got over on Whiteboard Coon. I wanted to look over and see all of the things I still have written on Whiteboard Coon since episode 1 off screen. I've been moving a couple things around on where I'm recording, so you may notice some differences in the background with the lighting, things like that. If you like it, let me know. But I'm pretty excited because we have the nurse, the doctor, the cop, Dobu, Odakawa, missing girl. People know things. There's a lot of mystery, and Odakawa does not seem bothered by the fact that his camera footage has gone missing. So I'm like, dude, I would be wanting that footage back if I didn't. But also, he's kind of been threatened. The one cop was like, you know, if you let this out to the police, you might get killed. And he's like, okay. I mean, he didn't seem too bothered by the fact that it wasn't there. I'm hoping that the fact that there's not camera footage will end up benefiting him in the long run. And then when they ask when the camera footage is, he's like, well, just ask him. He took it from me. And then it'll all come back. But we'll just have to see. So I've also watched the OP. So by now I'm going to be looking at it every week to see if there's like little things that I can glean that will possibly affect us later on. But we're not going to waste any more time. I hope you all enjoy this reaction and discussion. I'm so excited. But we are going to start Odd Taxi episode 2. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And I'll see you all on the other side. That's just mean. That's just cruel. And you can't do that, show. I may have to watch episode 3. I may not be able to wait. That is just absolutely cruel. Oh my god. So, okay. I brought Whiteboard Coon back out, surprising no one, because we need to keep track of our relationships between everybody in this show, because I have a feeling it's gonna be coming up quite regularly, right? Okay, so Odakawa is our taxi driver. He is the guy that is the center of all of this, in all of this mess. And then he knows some mystery person. I was convinced that the mystery person was one of the pop group, which their names I'm going to write up here because I couldn't quite remember it. But the mystery person might not be the pop group at all, so who knows? But it was a girl that was kind of a black cat, so I thought it would be her in the group, but I guess not. I was like, okay, maybe that's not the case, because it seemed like they've been the same group this whole time, so I don't know. So we'll just keep track of that. But he knows that. He knows the influencer, who's the one that has the tweet. So we're going to go back to that, and he's kind of in this episode a little bit. He's now met Dobu, who has a gun pointed at him. And Dobu knows the cop, who Odakawa also knows, doesn't particularly care for him. He's been working with Dobu, getting him information, so that's a thing. And then the brother of the cop, Odakawa also knows, but he doesn't seem like he's suspicious on anything, so we don't know yet. We're going to also put down that there is a possibility I'm going to bring over here about, let's say, the manager of the band. That the manager is knowing all them, because maybe he had something to do with all this. The manager of the pop group, we're going to see. But anyway, then there's the comedian duo, the Homo sapiens, which we're going to talk about in this episode. We're going to talk about a little bit with that. So that's going to be interesting. Going back to episode 1 and thinking about it, I want to talk about their whole thing and that shtick here in a hot second. Then we had the skunk cat boy, the fanboy, who's been, since the concert, been to all of them. You know how that goes. And he knows Rui Nikaido. She's awesome. I love her already. She seems so badass, but she's like, She's like, I was born to be a badass motorcyclist, and I was forced to be in this pop idol group. You know how that goes. But Rui and her other 2 band members, the one band member has apparently linked up with AG, which we'll talk about. AG is friends with Odakawa. And AG is drinking buddies at the bar with the doctor, who is Odakawa's doctor. And then there is Miho Shirakawa, who is working with the doctor, but she also knows Odakawa now. And gave him her number and everything, so they know each other. And she possibly knows Dobu. Here's the thing. She's getting the drugs and stealing the drugs from the clinic, from the hospital. But we honestly don't know if she's giving the drugs to Dobu. We assume maybe he met up with her at some point in the OP, not the OP, but in the beginning of episode 1. So they might know each other, I'm going to guess. Maybe. We're going to say they probably know each other, possibly. But yeah, so there's a whole web here of all these people who know everybody. And Odakawa is like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon for all of them. And they mentioned Cyndi Lauper in this episode. I was like, what is happening? So yeah, so we have how to spend a long night. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a long night for him at this sauna. And he's like, you traded numbers with Shirakawa. And he's like, yeah, we just got that in the direction. So Eiji and Odakawa are the same age. They've grown up together. They've seemed to have known each other for a very long time. They talk about being a bachelor in their 40s. Now they need to take advantage of anything, time that they can get. I'm 37, so I understand the single life and being portrayed as like a bachelorette or a bachelor, lifelong, all that jazz. But relationships are hard. This episode talks about how hard relationships are. It deals with it, and it kind of delves into it in a very subtle manner. Especially with the Homo sapiens, talking about the subtleties of relationships and interpersonal communication. That's talked about a lot in this episode, and we're going to go through it. But yeah, AG's just kind of jealous that he managed to get her number, being like, you should, are you interested in her or not? He says she said she wanted to meet up for lunch and dinner on her days off. And he's like, I don't know. I'm very curious because she doesn't seem like the type. She says she's interested in Odakawa, but I'm like, is she? Is she really? Or is she leading him on? I want to say she's leading him on, but maybe she does like him. I don't know. I don't know if everyone in this show is an animal or if it's just from his perspective. Because thinking back to episode 1, the doctor said, "What do I look like to you?" And he said, "A gorilla." And he's like, "Yeah, that's pretty funny. That's on the nose." But maybe this is just from Odakawa's perspective and they all look like animals based on how he thinks of them, but that's part of his condition that the doctor's talking about. He's like, there's something fundamentally different about him, because we got another flashback of the when he talks to the fanboy about the accident and how he near should have died but he didn't. In the accident and in episode 1, the outlines, they don't look like animals. They look like there's no animal features there was no like walrus features on the woman driving the car in the first episode, and in the back seat you couldn't really see his face, but you couldn't tell if he had animal features or not. So I'm like, is that all in his head and he's just imagining people as animals, but this is the real world? Maybe we'll see. But yeah, so it said our solo performance were a big hit. Tickets sold out. I want to quit my part-time job already. Well, when haven't you written any jokes? My girlfriend takes care of me. And he says, you're a piece of shit. My girlfriend said I could quit. But we formed Bono Illumination formed 4 years ago, and they live in a place where the rent is 400,000 yen. Doesn't that sting? Well, it is what it is. The other day I got caught up in vanity searching. You shouldn't do that. I searched for Homo sapiens funny and got hit. Well, you really shouldn't do that vanity search. Comedy requires intelligence and culture to understand. That's the bare minimum. The general public are idiots, but that doesn't stop them from judging us. Keep your mouth shut, idiots. Are you listening? Being a creator is a one-way street. Don't try to get involved. Suppressing your own creativity in order to cater to society's values produces mediocre results. Damn amateurs. So there seems to be like a little bit of discussion where they're talking about content creation and about creativity and about how like relying on society can be destructive of yourself, which definitely seems to be the case. So they talk about that. And then the one that's the horse, I think he's a horse, he talks about his relationship and how he seems to be kind of like reliant and codependent. Whereas the other one that we'll get back to him, what animal he was, he talks about mainly how he could do well solo. Which the irony is, the one that's the horse, he's the one that gets called to the food show to be a guest on it, but not the one that said he could do it solo. So that's interesting. That's interesting. But yeah, I would admit, when we go back to the one influencer where he talks about like, you know, what gets likes and what does good, I've kind of felt this myself. Like I watch a lot of content, and a lot of content I do watch, it's, you know, about people talking about things that they find wrong with certain things. Like I watch a lot of de-influencing videos, mainly because I don't get on TikTok. So I learn about TikTok trends and things from these, you know, YouTubers that talk about de-influencing and overconsumption and stuff like that. But a lot of it is negative things. And it's one of those things where negativity can sell, negative press can sell, but a lot of people don't want to maybe hear about, I mean, heartwarming stuff does have its place, like the influencer says in the last episode, but a lot of it is kind of, you know, self-destructive. But then these guys are like, you know, just relying upon society is destructive of yourself and your creativity. But then the other guy says, but isn't our job to cater to a consumer? So there is a pretty... I would argue that you can look at it from numbers of different ways. Like you can either, you know, give the customer what they want, but the thing is, the customer's not going to keep wanting it if you're giving them something they can find elsewhere. It has to be something that only you can provide, that's not like cookie cutter, I guess, is a good way to put it. So it's a fine line. Like, what do you do? How do you create content that's unique and things like that? So, it's kind of like when people find a niche, like you see like a volleyball player reacting to a volleyball show. Well, that has a niche because they have a unique set of experience because they're a volleyball player, right? And I'm an English teacher and a speech coach. So I come at looking at things and from a literary perspective sometimes with what I know and how I break things down. And I do long form content, which is a little bit different on that. So we all just kind of have our niche. But, it's not everything is for everyone. So I like this discussion they have in this episode about creativity and, well, what do you do with that? It's interesting. Our opinions should be the priority when we're going after people's responsibilities. It's up to us to decide, nah, that wasn't quite right. Let's try something else. And then they talk about the fan mail. I like during this entire conversation, Shirakawa's kind of like, she's really awkward in the back seat. And she's looked down at the radio and realized it's a cassette tape. Like, it's not even a live show. Like, it's not a show that he just, is tuning into because he wants to hear it now and he can't hear it any other time. It's a cassette tape. He could play it whenever he wants to, right? But basically they talk about how, we need to determine if something's not working, do we rehash it or not, which is going to come into play with their conversation later. Then the fan mail is from the Nagashima from Tokyo, the high school student. It says, good evening. I went to see the Homo sapiens solo performance. It's typically fans who attend them, so it's natural your audience will laugh. I think it's great you guys believe in your own value and have conviction. However, as professionals, I think it's embarrassing for you to knock people who don't recognize your talent as uncultured amateurs. Ooh, and that's a very fair point too, that they bring up this idea that a lot of times I've watched some people that, when they get criticism, their immediate response is, well, you don't know shit and stuff like that. And it's like, you can't say that an audience is wrong just because they're not into the same things you are. Like, we had a discussion, I'm recording this way ahead, so by the time this gets out, that discussion on Discord will be long gone. But there was another patron and I that were talking about our preferences on whether or not we prefer, like, I don't like it when studios release like a show coming out streaming week to week and the animation is not fully finished and they decide to wait until the Blu-ray comes out and they're like, oh, well, now you can see the updated animation. And my philosophy is just do it right the first time. But the person on Discord, the patron, was like, well, but that's a way for them to sell physical media. And I'm like, I get that, but I'm also like, oh, it feels so cheap. It feels so scammy when they do that. It's like, why couldn't you just do it right the first time? And if you want the physical media, like, include like stickers or bonus material or content or whatever. But then the patron was like, well, but I don't like that bonus material and I would buy it to have the updated animation. And I'm like, and it was one of those scenarios where we both have a very fundamentally different view on that particular topic, but neither of us are wrong. We just have different opinions about it. But it would be very uncouth of me to like tell that patron, well, you're just, uncultured if you don't, like, I couldn't do that. You can't do that, right? It's, it's real. That would be really arrogant and wrong. You can't just assume that it's okay if you have differing opinions about it. But like the person here is knocking on the comedians saying you can't call people who don't recognize your talent as uncultured amateurs just because you have a fan base that supports you. So yeah, it's something similar. Only after you've acknowledged others' perspectives, stuck to your guns, and achieved success can you call yourself performers. Don't mistake overconfidence for confidence. Also, compared to Bono Illumination, you're way less charming. Yikes. P.S. You managed to cover it up with your energy, but the final joke of your solo show isn't funny when it's written out. Damn, they were brutal. And then she says, do you feel awkward? I love it. And then we transition to that. So yeah. And I guess I'm like, do you feel awkward about this conversation and what's happening? And he's like, well, I wouldn't say awkward. I listen to it every week and I turned it on out of habit. Like, I guess maybe he was nervous around her because maybe he thinks that she's pretty and he's or she gives him like an odd vibe and he felt nervous around her. So just out of, comfort, he turned it on. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting. And she's like, why can't you sleep? And maybe he felt nervous because she was his nurse and he didn't feel comfortable with her in the vehicle because she knows a lot about him because he's been there quite a bit. So he can't sleep. He's like, I've forgotten how to sleep. I can't remember how I used to do it, which is crazy. And then she gives him the secret of counting sheep, which is funny. And he's like, you make it sound like you came up with it yourself, but that trick's been around forever. She's like, also, I think it's Cyndi Lauper, the MVP. He's like, have you watched We Are the World? What is We Are the World? I'm going to look. Oh, okay. So We Are the World was a charity song. Yes, recover. Oh, yeah, wasn't it for it was USA for Africa. Yes. Back in 19 I'm old enough to I was not born when We Are the World was a thing, but in the 90s it was parodied a lot and talked about a lot, and I was like, what are they talking about? So We Are the World was a charity single that was recorded by supergroup USA for Africa in 1985. It was written by Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie, produced by Quincy Jones for this album. It sold over 20 million physical copies, which is crazy. It's the 8th best-selling single of all time. But it was mainly to raise money for the famine in Ethiopia from 1983 to 1985. So it said the British group Band-Aid had released in 1984 a Do You Know It's Christmas song that also benefit African famine relief. And so they decided to do this later. So the event brought together some of the era's best-known recording artists, including Bruce Springsteen, Cyndi Lauper, Paul Simon, Stevie Wonder, and Tina Turner. They mentioned Stevie Wonder and Bruce Springsteen last episode, and here she's calling Cyndi Lauper the MVP of the single. So interesting. Okay. All right. So we've got that going on. But yeah, so we now have from Odakawa this knowledge that he cannot sleep. I wonder if that's like, I wonder if is that relating to like, is he taking any psychotropic drugs for his sleep and that's causing him to imagine them as animals maybe? Also, is she going to plant the drugs in the taxi cab and blame him for it? I don't know. Interesting. So yeah, she's like, no. And what do they start this next conversation here where she says, is there anyone that you like, Odakawa? And he's like, no! And she's like, well, what a waste. Life's more fun when you're in love. I figured he'd say something like it's more complicated and so not so much fun. And he says, I'm too old for that. She's like, well, you're only 41. Your life's just getting started. Good. Good vibe to have. He's like, well, how do you know that? She says, I've seen your medical records. He's like, well, you know all my personal information. She says, what about your family? They were gone before I knew it. In late elementary school. So he was like a kid, like maybe 10 or 11. And she said, how do you support yourself? And he's like, what is this, a stress interview? So yeah, I mean, I would assume he supports himself from the taxi business. I would assume, but I don't know what else he does. And he says, well, do you regret anything? And she says, taking out a student loan so I could attend nursing school. So my theory is that she talks about, which her story is very similar. I do advising in a school, so I understand how this goes. A lot of students don't want to rely on their parents, which is fair, and they take out loans. If you've ever taken out a loan, you would know that they usually have really high interest rates. You usually end up paying back a lot more than you took out, and they can take a long time to pay off. So I like her regret here, saying she relied on her parents and she was stubborn, and she probably wouldn't have had to pay off this loan had she not done that. And then he says, well, have you not paid it off? And she looks away and says, oh, no, I have. Now, to me, that, oh, no, I have, signifies a few things. One, that she could have paid it off by getting involved with Dobu or some of these other like criminals, and she's been stealing drugs for them. But the problem is, once you start stealing drugs for them, what typically tends to happen is you can't get out of stealing drugs for them. And once you start stealing drugs, you're kind of in the loop. And once they find out that you have a hookup and a connection to them, they're not going to just say, oh, well, thanks for paying off your loan. Now you can go free. Don't tell anybody you're associated with criminals. No, they're going to keep you there. And they're going to keep you selling those drugs. So I'm assuming that she doesn't think she can get out. She's stuck in this now that she's paid off her loan. And Odakawa's like, this conversation's taking a turn for the creepy. So anyway, he asks where she was born. She says Miyazaki, and she instantly can sing a folk song, which is cute. I love her ears perk up when she sings the song, and he's like, oh my God. It's super cute. But then she's like, I want to build a happy family. And is there anybody that she likes? And she says, yes. What's he like? She says, well, he's a little hard to describe. She's like, I do have a photo of him. Do you want to see? And then I guess when he's talking about Eiji, he says, I'll tease Kakihana by telling him about it. I guess Kakihana is Eiji, and that's who he's going to... I thought it was the doctor at first, but I think Eiji was the one he was talking about. But then she passes him the phone, and it's him that he sees in the camera. Girl is sly. Girl is very sly. And he's like, I don't know what to do with this. Which I would be honestly, even though it's a sly move and that's very flirty on her part, I would be a little bit concerned if someone came up to me and did that trick and I didn't really know him that well. I'd be like, should I be creeped out by this? I love how he says that Eiji has transcended all kinds of stuff to achieve this look of total serenity. It's really funny. Also, I like there's this anteater that has like Yakuza tattoos. I'm like, should we be worried about him? Is he connected in all this? And then there's a random beaver. And he's like, well, Odakawa, you have a chance. At the rate we're going, we're both headed to straight eternal bachelorhood. Snagging a beautiful girl would be a huge upset. And he's like, well, I don't particularly like her, but I don't particularly not like her. And he's like, well, what if you had to choose? And he's like, why are you forcing me to answer a difficult question in black and white terms? I like that because that is a hard, like, asking someone, do you like them or not, is not always a straightforward answer, right? And he says, who are you, Mr. Children? He's like, I'm asking, which way are you leaning? Do you leaning towards not liking her or liking her? He's like, well, I guess towards liking her. And he's like, well, how much? How big is your affection for her? And then that's when he says, the size of a North American supplement. I'm like, what? So does that have any specific meaning? What does that mean? North American supplement. Oh, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Is it like a vitamin? And then he says, in some ways, that's huge. I like the hourglass, meaning how much time they have in the sauna. And he's like, what should I do? And he says, well, you shouldn't be too careful. They say women are fickle as autumn weather, and you should strike while the iron is hot. But if you're too aggressive, she'll think you're a desperate old man. So maybe just give her the cold shoulder as, a way to like lure her in. I was like, and then I love that Odakawa said, well, this is why you're single. Why am I asking you for advice? Because I was like, yeah, I don't know if that's the way I would go about it, but we'll see how that goes. He's like, well, smile kindly at her when you see her at the clinic. All right. He's like, but real talk, I bet your parents would be ecstatic if you were married by the time they returned. So what is this about parents? He told her he lost his family a long time ago. Are these foster parents that he's talking about? Because Eiji seems to think that his are they foster parents? Because he says that they left a long time ago, but he talks about, that. Do you want them to meet their grandkids? I mean, I'd rather show the people who covered my living expenses. After my parents left, that I'm happy. Okay, so the people that covered my living expenses after my parents left, that I'm happy. I'm assuming that it's interesting that he calls the people that might be his foster family just the people paying the expenses. So that maybe explains a couple things, that they're paying for some of the utilities and stuff while he's working on the side. Interesting. You mean that support group? Oh, and so then the support group, this whole conversation, interesting. Because he talks about parents coming back, and then he talks about people paying the living expenses, and then Eiji calls them a support group. So there is a lot of mystery wrapped up with Odakawa, and I'm very intrigued to find out more, but I want to know the full scoop. but we don't know yet. So then he's like, you never get in the bath, Odakawa. And he's like, no. I like that he's like, no, I really don't want to. He's like, don't you want to stop by Taiko's place? I'm working tonight. I guess Taiko's the bar. Yeah. So he takes the photo, and I guess the photo, I want to see, I'm going to take a screenshot of this because I want to know why he specifically told the fanboy that group of numbers in that specific order. I want to know if there was a reason for it. But we'll see. If it was just the lockers leading up to the locker where I thought he'd pick the one his hat was in, which was 17, but he did not. He picked several numbers, so interesting. I also like the idea that he says Taiko hasn't seen your face in a while. She misses you. So I'm assuming that that is the woman that runs the bar. I also like that Odakawa is like, you're not supposed to take pictures inside here. It's prohibited. So that's interesting. Then Eiji gets the message from Shiho. Shiho is the girl that's in the group. And it says, it was nice to meet you. I'm intrigued by your very genuine looking photo, so I sent you a message. She's 18. Eiji is 41. And they established that Shiho does not have good self-esteem, which most young girls that would go after older men from personal experience of seeing them in the flesh in real life, most of them didn't have self-esteem either. And so I'm like, ooh, Eiji, now is your chance to not be the creepy old man and to not pursue her because she is like 30, 20 something years younger than you. No. If you're old enough to be her parent, no, I don't think so. So then we have the one influencer who has the figurine of the one girl, the magical girl figurine, and he has all of these books that say like how to fill out a job application, finding a job, 500 tips to finding a job, how to write social media posts, make your dreams come true with social media, the internet, rules for achieving popularity, how to get posts shared on social media, collection of funny tweets, the social network, how to get likes, how to go viral on social media. Dude, you could look up all of this online for free. Why are you buying books on it? Which just so shows like a kind of desperation that he has. And then like he has a tweet from 2 hours ago that says, the other day I ordered a corner highball from a foreign looking waiter at an izakaya and he brought me a highball with Coke. Just how good is my pronunciation? Womp womp. I mean, it's not that funny. And it's not really anything special. It's just like, okay, yeah. All right. I mean, it's just kind of mediocre. I don't understand why he would expect that to go viral. But then, as he's being told, then there is Don Raku, who is one of the comedians that we saw in episode 1 that's on TV. And so we were told young people aren't watching TV, but popular tweets tend to be about TV. And people who brag about not watching it are just addicted to their phones. Not only that, but they're idiots who think they're actively gathering information. Well, I could see why that's popular because it's targeting a specific audience, and that specific audience is going to be triggered and are going to respond. It's very clickbaity. It's rage baity. It's being like, hey, you that are on your phone, you're dumb for being on your phone. What are you going to say about that? It's like an open invitation, just asking for, a response. And then people, of the 140,000 retweets, it says, your Rakugo isn't very funny. And it says, what does the one say? There it is, old people causing problems again. So then he's like, oh, is that what it takes? Because he looks up at the tweet that was nice. I can't believe you printed it off. That's really funny. So I guess he decides, he's like, well, I'll just be a rage baiter and that'll garner me attention, which unfortunately works. However, doing that is self-destructive, right? In the long haul, it's self-destructive if you do a lot of the rage bait, because eventually people will get bored of you and go rage at something else. And then what are you left with? Because if you were the rage bait, you've lost your trust with your audience. So where do you fall back on? right? And the horse, you know, in the one scene, he kind of gets a little bit rage baity with like his comedy style, but it kind of taps into that same thing, right? I like the intermission card with Eiji. It's pretty cool. So then we have the mystery kiss group, and there's literally like 5 people there again, right? Taking the pictures. Rui Nikaido is so interesting. Imai is his name. Okay. Imai is the one there. Yeah, for coming to see her again. Which I do appreciate Imai. He's one of the OG fans of this group, you know. But Rui Nikaido, she's a great character because she seems like a pop idol girl, and then she puts on like a leather moto jacket and she's just like, F this. Like, you know, I'm like, I love her character already. I'm like, hell yes. Good. And she's just literally putting on this persona of being the pop idol girl for Imai because, you know, he's, you know, getting to get the picture and everything. She's like, let me give you a hug. Right? She's just trying to keep up appearances so that he'll keep, you know, spending money on their group. So what's interesting is, you know, I was like, I'll buy your debut single. But she's like, you know, there are fewer people that showed up than expected again. And he's like, well, why don't, you know, Ichimura and Mitsuya, wouldn't they look better without their masks? So we have Ichimura. And we also have Mitsuya. And Ichimura, I think, is the one that knows Eiji. Yeah. I don't know if the manager wants Rui to be the center of attention. I don't know if Rui is planning like a Destiny's Child-esque split from the group where she's going to be a solo idolist a la Beyonce. I don't know if that's what's in the cards, right? It's like, it seems like such a waste. I'd assume they take their masks off for the Polaroids. Nobody would want a Polaroid if they're masked. And then Rui says, those were the conditions for our debut. So I guess it's kind of like the comedians later on, where the one comedian gets more clout and gets the offer for the TV show. And it seems like it might signal the breakup of their group. But in her case, she's like, well, for us to debut, I had to be the one without the mask and the other 2 had to have it on. So maybe they just went along with it, but I like this episode talks a lot about relationships. I'm sure they've got their reasons. But Mitsuya's dancing has gotten a little sloppy. She might just be tired. Interesting. So he's like, I'm just a waiter at a club now, but I'll get enough money to buy all your merch. All right. So the one guy says they've got some time before the venue closes, and he asks them to go outside and sell the leftover merch. And they're like, well, why can't Rui come along? And he's like, sorry. And she's like, well, it's embarrassing to go outside with our masks on. They prevent us from attracting the big spenders like Nikaido does. And then the one girl says, I couldn't even attract fans even if I took my mask off. And they're like, Ichimura, you have too little self-esteem. She's like, now I'm here after starting my career maskless. And behind them are all the posters of the other idol groups, which is interesting. It's crazy you have any self-esteem at all. And then the one cat says, maybe it's because my parents raised me with love. And I'm like, what the fudge? Insane. And so then they have this conversation. They say crazy a lot. But then, like, Rui goes back like she's not doing anything. This is beyond our expectations. Great work, Nikaido. Even the online news is talking about you. And she's like, well, it's not enough. Basically, she wants to become Beyonce. She is wanting to split from those other 2 hardcore. She's like, given the commercial we put out, we're less successful than we should be. We need more fans like Imai. And yeah, when they did their first concert, there was only 5 guys there. He's the only one who's been following us since then. So Yamamoto is the manager. We're going to put him over here. Yamamoto. And he says, everything went smoothly. I want to go back to this conversation, right? Because she heard all of it. So if anything goes down, she's a witness to the conversation, right? And he says, yes, half right, of course. A dash cam. So I'm wondering if they're swapping money. The manager and Dobu are swapping money to get certain things because he mentions the dash cam. And he says, I'll look for him. Do you know the driver's name? Okay. I'm not sure what I can do if you don't. Okay. So, but I don't know. He said, okay, but Yamamoto might not be talking to Dobu, right? Maybe not. We don't know who Dobu's talking to, actually, because what if Dobu is talking, what if Yamamoto is talking to Miho? Because after this conversation, Miho is the one that texts Odakawa asking for a ride after this conversation. So maybe she figured out she needed the dash cam. I don't know. I don't know if Yamamoto is talking to Dobu. I don't know if Yamamoto is talking to her. That's a mystery. We don't know exactly what's going on there. And he's like, it's nothing for you to worry about, Nikaido. And Nikaido's like, I don't know about that. So she's going to get involved in all this. And then Amai ends up picking up the cab. And they have the conversation about getting to Shinjuku and how he spent all of this money, but he can't afford the cab. And he's like, if you had the money to buy those tickets, you should set aside some for cab fare. Like again, establishing it, Mai has mismanaged his money and is not good at handling it. And he talks about the Mystery Kiss band. They struggled for 2 years before they debuted. I like that Odakawa says 2 years is not long to struggle. Because he's 41. He'd probably know from experience. So he's like, I encountered them a year ago, and there was only 5 of us in the audience. He's like, I feel happy, but I'm also sad and conflicted, you know, because he used to be like the fan, and now he's like one of the fans, right? He's like, but I was one of the OGs. I'll never forget how I felt then. Rui Nikaido's overpowering aura. Her singing reminded me of Janis Joplin. When he said that, I was like, are we listening to the same music? I know Janis Joplin. Her voice does not sound anything like Janis Joplin. That girl ain't singing Want Somebody to Love. That ain't what she's singing. No. And then her innate idol-like qualities contrasted with the ambition that flowed out of her. And then Yuki Mitsuya's exceptional physical abilities backed by her next level dancing. Now, here's the thing. They did not show us Mitsuya's face. They just showed us the back of her and then her dancing. And then he pointed out in the photo op that Mitsuya's dancing had gotten sloppy. So I don't know. A part of me thinks that Mitsuya has been replaced, but a part of me is like, maybe she just is fatigued. I can't put my finger on it yet. Something's off. And then Ichimura has genuine modesty. Like, she's just there. Ichimura is just there. She's not really got much else going on. At least the other two have, like, something significant. Each idol had a unique personality. They were holy trinity of idols. And he's like, well, you've got a lot to say about them, but they get worse and worse. He's like, well, I am ultimately a Nikaido's fan. So then he has this debut single, Supernatural Love Phenomenon, the pre-order ticket for Christmas 2021, which this came out in 2021. Okay. He's like, well, I could have Ryui all to myself. Again, talking about relationships, talking about, you know, people that we find interesting. So we've had Shirakawa and Odakawa having these interpersonal conversations. We've got the Homo sapiens doing that. We have Imai here with Odakawa. Then we have Imai talking about him and Rui. So there's a lot of stuff brewing under the surface. Which is why it reminds me of Twin Peaks a little bit, because like the Zootopia for the anthropomorphic animals, obviously. You could say Beastars too if you wanted to do the anime route. But it reminds me a little about Twin Peaks, because Twin Peaks is a lot about all these characters and their connections and the mystery that tangles them all together. And I feel that with this show. And he says, a long time ago, Odakawa says, I survived an accident that should have killed me. And then we see, it's like, maybe I am super lucky. But here, again, we see the cop cars. We see the outlines of people, but I don't know. Interesting. He says, well, if you were lucky, you wouldn't have gotten into an accident. And he's like, well, I guess you're right. Okay. So he lets them out and he asks, could I get your 7 favorite numbers between 1 and 37, like for the lottery? And so he thinks back at the number. Okay, so AG sent him the picture, and it was 2, 6, 10. Okay, but here, yeah, he goes, so here with the picture, he says 2, 10, 18, 20, 32, and 33. Which is bizarre to me because in the photo, like 2 and 10, so you're skipping 6, you're skipping 14, but then he doesn't skip 20, and then 32 is at the bottom, and 33, like they don't, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's like there was no right. He just looked at the picture, but he skipped 6, he skipped 14, he skipped 22 through 30, and then it's like, what? There was no rhyme or reason. He just looked at the picture and picked numbers from it. I'm so confused. Yeah, he just picked random numbers from the picture. And he's like, okay, sounds pretty good. And he's like, you still have money? He's like, geez. So Miho asks if he can meet, but before that happens, it looks like this is October 15th, so the CD's coming out in like 2 months, so that makes sense. He has the two comedians get in. All right. There's like the mule and then the one guy that looks like a pig. Yes. So he's like, I thought I might find something we could use on the broadcast. Doesn't this just piss you off? So we have the subway cover, and it's like 10 minutes and poorly sung. So again, now the influencer's trying to like just do rage bait. He's like, it's too slow. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, Zuden. And says Homo sapien baba. Rank is 80 out of 1,000. And then he has like just basically this accountant playing this game. He says, your name is Homo sapien baba. I can play with our fans this way. What's wrong with that? He's like, you raise animals and rank up. He's like, focus on ranking up your comedy. You're dead last right now. I mean, among all people, don't get the wrong idea. He's like, well, don't be so self-conscious. He says, my girlfriend has the opportunity to achieve the percentage of cacao in a very bitter bar of chocolate. And that's when they talk about him being on the radio. So the one guy that's the horse or the mule or donkey or whatever, he seems more occupied with how people perceive him. And then the pig or the boar, he seems more interested in the act of comedy itself and the actual genre and the creativity angle of it, whereas he seems more interested in the perception by the public. And that means they're kind of not on the same page, right? Yeah. He's like, if we were lucky, we wouldn't need to work hard. I'm wondering how he got that pin up in the corner. Whenever we saw the little pin up in the corner that has a heart and the bow, I'm like, how did he get that up there? Is that his? Or did the girl, the high school girl, put it up there? Did Shirakawa put it up there? That seems like it should be important and we should know about it for later, but I don't know. Seems like you're not equally committed. And so they're like, well, we may have passed it around to the preliminaries. But then the boar asks if we should dissolve the group. And he's like, I don't really understand comedy. He's like, well, you're the one that's the actual comedian. And you'll probably be successful. And if I'm holding you back, I should probably step out of your way. And then he's like, well, you've got it all wrong. You shouldn't be talking about quitting. Your fatal flaw is you're not frustrated after what he said about us. And then when he starts getting frustrated, that's when he's like, you know, that's the comedy we need, is you getting frustrated. And that makes Odakawa laugh. He's like, yeah. He's like, you know, we should be making fun of you and you reacting to it. He says you're a crap student, a crap fighter, and a crap comedian. And then he gets the phone call. He says, tomorrow. And he says, oh. He says, it's a regular appearance on this food show. And he's like, oh, okay. Some kind of daytime food show. And he's like, well, that's great. And he says, it's just me. So again, like a totally different vibe and situation. Mm-hmm. And then right as I'm expecting Odakawa to comment on that situation and the fact that one's gotten this opportunity and the other hasn't, and Odakawa looks down at his phone, and he says, where to? And that's when Dobu has the gun in his face. Oh my God. And Shirakawa is texting him as we speak. It says, I'll wait at the park across from the clinic. Oh my God! Ah! So I don't know. I don't know what we do with the comedians. If this episode was just about them and about bad timing, bad luck, the circumstance of it all, that you can't predict what's going to happen. It's just the course of the universe and how it all works out, or what. But Dobu is now holding Odakawa at gunpoint. And what's Shirakawa going to do about this? Are they going to go to Shirakawa? Where are they going to go to? What's going to happen? I don't know. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait until episode 3 or not. But anyway, that's fine. It's fine. In any case, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts down below. Please, no spoilers. As you all know, we'll find out with the show, but I'm curious about your thoughts about this episode. Please, no spoilers for the episodes to come. We'll cross those bridges when we get to it, but this show is so much fun to theorize about, and I can't wait to see what I'm right and wrong about, and we will find out. So in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll be back, yes, very soon, with more Odd Taxi. Bye!